You'd starve without this forgotten caveman trick. Imagine yourself in a frozen wilderness, your stomach aching from days without food, the snow crunches beneath your bare feet, the sky darkens, and hunger claws at your insides like a wild beast. No stores, no farms, no tools, just you and nature. Most modern humans wouldn't last a week. But tens of thousands of years ago, our ancestors had a secret terror trick so simple yet so powerful it meant the difference between life and death. Without it, you would starve. With it, you would survive. The question is, do you even know what it is anymore? Hunger at the edge of survival, the constant battle against hunger in the Stone Age. Hunger was not an occasional discomfort for early humans, it was a shadow that followed them every single day. Imagine waking up at dawn, not to the sound of an alarm clock, not to the promise of breakfast waiting in the kitchen, but to the gnawing emptiness inside your stomach. There was no guarantee you would eat today, or tomorrow, or even the day after that. Every morning began with one question: where will the next meal come from? For Stone Age humans, food was not abundance, it was pursuit, it was danger, it was uncertainty. The environment was merciless. A failed hunt didn't just mean disappointment. It meant children crying with hollow eyes, elders weakening, tribes on the edge of collapse. There were no refrigerators, no preserved rations, no security. Every calorie had to be fought for, earned, wrestled from nature herself. The world they lived in was colder, harsher, and far more unpredictable than the one we know today. Ice Age winds cut across plains where mammoths roamed. Dense forests hid predators that could turn a hunter into prey in a single heartbeat. Rivers swelled and flooded, washing away food sources. Seasons shifted suddenly, bringing drought or snow. In this environment, hunger was not a possibility, it was a certainty. The only question was, who could outlast it? When we think of our ancestors, we often imagine them as fierce huntersmen with spears chasing mammoths, women gathering berries and roots in the wild. But the truth was far more brutal. Hunts often failed. Wild plants were seasonal and scarce. Some days, entire groups would eat nothing but scraps of bark, bitter roots, or insects scavenged from rotting logs. To survive meant adapting, pushing beyond comfort, and finding food where others saw nothing. This constant hunger did more than shape the body. It forged the mind. Hunger sharpened instincts. It made humans innovative. It made them relentless. Unlike predators who relied only on muscle or speed, humans had to use creativity. They learned to track, to wait, to improvise. They learned to read the land like a book, to notice the smallest sign of food. A broken twig could mean the trail of an animal. A cluster of wilted leaves could mean edible roots below. Hunger forced the brain to awaken. But here's the paradox. As much as hunger was an enemy, it was also a teacher. It whispered the same lesson, day after day: survive or be forgotten. And those who listened, those who learned to bend nature's rules, to discover hidden sources of nourishment, to endure long enough to seize an opportunity, those were the ones who carried their bloodlines forward. Without that daily battle against starvation, we wouldn't be here. Your very existence is proof that your ancestors didn't just face hunger, they conquered it. But the question is, how? What trick? What secret did they use when all else failed? When the hunt came back empty? When the earth seemed barren? That forgotten method is the reason you exist today. The psychological torment of an empty stomach hunger was not just physical, it was psychological warfare. The emptiness inside a caveman's stomach was like a drumbeat that never stopped, echoing through the mind, stripping away comfort, and pushing the body toward desperation. Imagine it, the dizziness that comes after days without food, the muscles that feel heavier with each step, as though gravity itself has grown cruel, the way the mind begins to wander, chasing hallucinations of roasted meat or sweet berries. Hunger made men see things that weren't there. It drove tribes to the edge of madness, and yet, starvation wasn't rare, it was expected for early humans. Fasting wasn't a choice, it was a way of life. In the dead of winter, when the world was blanketed in snow, when rivers froze and the animals vanished into migration, families often sat around the fire with nothing to eat for days. Parents watched their children cry themselves to sleep, bellies aching, lips trembling in silence. Elders endured quietly, knowing the tribe might survive better if they themselves faded away. This torment changed people. Hunger stripped away illusions, it revealed truth. Out there, in the wilderness, you couldn't fake strength. You couldn't pretend to be resourceful. The weak mindset broke first not the body, but the will. Because hunger attacks the mind long before it destroys the flesh. Think about the way hunger sharpens attention. A modern human distracted by their phone, scrolling endlessly, would never survive in that world. But a caveman with an empty belly became something different. He became focused. Every sound in the forest became a signal. Every shadow in the distance, a potential meal lure, a predator. Hunger rewired the brain to notice patterns invisible to the comfortable. It was torment, yes, but it was also training. And here's the frightening part. Starvation didn't just push them to search for food, pushed them into creativity, into risks modern people would never consider. Some ate insects and worms. Some crushed bones to drink marrow. Some risked encounters with predators just to steal scraps of meat from their kills. Hunger silenced fear. When your stomach burns and your veins feel empty, even danger looks like opportunity. This is why hunger became the great sculptor of humanity. It carved resilience into our DNA. It etched problem-solving into our brains. It turned ordinary men and women into survival machines. Without it, there would have been no progress, no discovery, no reason to push beyond the ordinary. Hunger was merciless, but it was also the spark that forced humans to rise above instinct and enter the realm of strategy and thought. And here's the haunting truth. Your ancestors survived those winters, those famines, those endless empty nights. They endured torment you and I can barely imagine. And yet, they discovered something hidden, something powerful. A forgotten trick that allowed them to bend the odds in their favor. A trick so essential that without it, humanity would have been wiped away. The desperate innovations born from starvation, hunger was a cruel teacher, but it was also the greatest inventor in human history. Every trick, every tool, every strange experiment with food came from the same place, desperation. When the stomach screamed loud enough, the mind answered with ideas. Think about the first time a human ever cracked open a bone and tasted the marrow inside. That wasn't curiosity, it was necessity. Somewhere, a starving family gathered around the remains of a carcass left behind by predators. No meat remained, only the bones. But hunger spoke louder than fear of sickness. A rock smashed down, marrow spilled out, and suddenly humanity discovered a hidden treasure of fat and nutrients. The same story repeated itself across countless discoveries. Bitter roots that once poisoned tribes became edible only after someone dared to roast them over fire. Plants too tough to chew became soup when boiled in animal skin pouches filled with water and hot stones. Even fire itself, our greatest ally, wasn't mastered for warmth. First, it was mastered for food. Hunger forced humans to tame flame, to turn raw, dangerous ingredients into meals that could keep a tribe alive. Starvation turned humans into scavengers of the impossible. They learned to strip bark from trees, grind it into powder, and mix it with water for a faint imitation of bread. They chewed leather when nothing else remained. They dug deep into the frozen earth for roots, risking frostbite, because one root could mean the difference between life and death. But innovation didn't stop at food itself, it shaped behavior. Hunger taught humans to store, to plan, to hide food from animals, and even from one another. The first storage pits, carved into cold earth, weren't made out of foresight, they were born from desperation. When one good hunt might be followed by 10 empty days, only the clever survived. Hunger gave birth to strategy, and this is where the story shifts. Because while hunger was universal, not every group survived it. Many tribes vanished, forgotten by time. Their bones remained scattered in caves and riverbeds, but your ancestors, the ones who carried their blood forward to you, were not just lucky. They discovered something. A technique, a method, a survival trick that tilted the balance. Something so effective that it allowed humans to endure when the world itself seemed determined to erase them. It wasn't strength alone, it wasn't fire alone. It was something more subtle, something easily forgotten in the glow of modern comfort. That trick is buried deep in your DNA, hidden in stories whispered around fires long ago, erased by supermarkets and delivery apps. And yet, if tomorrow the modern world collapsed, if you were thrown into the wilderness with nothing but your bare hands, it would be the one thing standing between you and starvation. The forgotten caveman trick. The forgotten trick revealed what the trick was, and why it mattered when we imagine cavemen surviving. Our minds jump straight to hunting mammoths or gathering berries. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Those moments of abundance were rare. Most of the time, early humans were caught in the in-between, where hunts failed and the land offered little, and yet they survived. How? The answer lies in a survival trick so simple, so overlooked, that most modern people would never think of it. The trick was this. Humans learned to eat what others couldn't, while predators ripped into fresh kills and moved on. While herbivores grazed only on tender greens, humans discovered something no other creature mastered at the same scale, extracting food from what looked like nothing. They scavenged marrow from bones. They cracked open skulls for the brain inside. They dug up tubers hidden beneath soil, bitter and tough until fire transformed them. They learned fermentation, letting time and nature break down otherwise inedible foods. They turned the scraps of the world into sustenance. This was not just about eating, it was about unlocking hidden calories. Imagine a lion's kill. Once the meat was stripped away, most animals abandoned the carcass, but not humans. With stone tools, they shattered bones, pried open joints, scraped tendons, and extracted fat. Those fats and proteins were gold-dense energy that fueled the brain, the very organ that made humans different. Other species starved when the feast ended. Humans lingered, finding nourishment in what seemed worthless. Why did it matter so much? Because this trick gave humans time. Time to endure between hunts, time to survive harsh winters, time to recover from wounds. Without it, starvation would have wiped out tribes again and again. This resourcefulness became the invisible shield that allowed humanity to persist where stronger, faster predators perished. And this skill went beyond bones and scraps. Early humans experimented relentlessly. Driven by hunger, they tested which plants could be detoxified with fire, They roasted seeds that were inedible, raw. They boiled bark into drinkable broths. Each discovery expanded the menu of survival, giving them options where other animals had none. Here lies the forgotten genius. Survival wasn't about abundance, it was about transformation. Humans learned to turn scarcity into opportunity. That simple truth, the ability to eat what others couldn't, became the dividing line between extinction and endurance. Today, we hardly think about it. Our food arrives clean, packaged, safe, pre-cooked, processed. But if the modern world collapsed tomorrow, supermarkets emptied, and farms fell silent, how many of us could look at a bone, a bitter root, or a scrap of bark and see a meal? That, right there, is the forgotten caveman trick. It mattered because it was survival distilled to its essence. Take what seems useless and make it life. How cavemen discovered and perfected it. No great discovery arrives from comfort, it is always born from desperation. For early humans, the forgotten trick of eating what others could not wasn't uncovered in a moment of genius, but in countless moments of hunger. Picture a tribe stumbling upon the half-rotten remains of a predator's killed. The flesh is gone, scavengers already circle, and yet the people linger. The children cry from weakness. The elders' faces are pale and sunken. In that moment, instinct collides with desperation. What if something still remains? A stone tool cracks open a femur, marrow spills out, warm and oily. For the first time, they taste survival hidden inside what looked like waste. That moment changes everything. From there, trial and error became a way of life. Humans tested roots by nibbling small pieces, waiting for sickness or relief. They watched animals for clues, but unlike animals, they didn't stop at what was safe. They pushed further, experimenting with fire, smoke, boiling, drying. Fire was especially revolutionary. What was bitter became edible. What was toxic became harmless. What was tough became soft. Hunger taught them that the world was full of locked doors, and fire was the master key. This process was not without cost. Many must have fallen, poisoned by the wrong berry, weakened by spoiled meat, sickened by fungus. But each mistake became knowledge for the tribe. Pain carved wisdom. The survivors carried memory forward, teaching children what could and could not be eaten, passing down secrets that meant life or death. Over generations, those lessons became instinct, etched into ritual and story, until they no longer questioned why, they simply knew. Perfection came through patience. Humans learned that bones needed to be cracked in certain ways to yield marrow more easily. They discovered that roasting tubers transformed them into rich, starchy fuel. They learned to dry meat to last through winters, to ferment plants into safer, more digestible food, to smoke, fish, and preserve fat in animal skins. None of this was quick. None of it was easy. It was centuries of refinement, bought with hunger and paid for with courage. And here's the subtle genius. While predators lived in cycles of feast and famine, humans slowly broke free. They became less dependent on luck, less vulnerable to scarcity. Every scrap of food became potential. Every kill was stretched further. Every season endured longer. Their trick wasn't just to survive in the moment, it was to build a buffer against the unknown. That buffer gave them time, and time gave them power. What began as desperation became culture. Around fires, knowledge passed in whispers, which plants to dig, which bones to crack, which flames to trust. What once was innovation became identity. Humans became the species that could eat what others could not. And through that transformation, they carved a path no other creature could follow. Why this simple method meant life or death for early humans? Survival was never guaranteed. One failed hunt could mean disaster. A sudden storm could strip the land bare. A migration could carry the herds hundreds of miles away. In those moments, when nature offered nothing, the forgotten trick wasn't just useful, it was the razor's edge between life and death. Think of two tribes facing the same famine. One waits for the return of game animals, praying for luck. The other digs deep into the earth, pulling out bitter tubers, scraping the last bits of marrow from bones, boiling bark into broth. One starves while the other endures. That was the brutal calculus of survival. Not strength, not speed. The tribe that could transform scraps into meals was the tribe that lived to see another sunrise. The brilliance of this trick lay in its reliability. Hunting was uncertain, sometimes triumphant, sometimes deadly, but marrow, roots, insects, seeds, bark, these were always there, hidden in plain sight. They were not glamorous. They did not taste like victory, but they kept hearts beating, legs moving, and minds sharp enough to try again tomorrow. And sometimes, that tomorrow was all you needed. It also gave humans an advantage no predator could match: endurance. A lion could sprint and kill, but if the hunt failed, the lion went hungry. Humans, on the other hand, could scavenge what was left behind, could stretch one carcass into days of survival, could eat what lions discarded. That endurance gave humans the space to plan, to wait, to think. Slowly, humanity shifted from prey to predator, not because of power, but because of persistence. And make no mistake, this wasn't just about calories. This was about evolution itself. Those hidden fats, those marrow-rich meals, those nutrient-dense scraps, they fed the human brain. While other animals starved, humans unlocked energy sources no one else touched. That energy powered bigger brains, sharper thoughts, better tools. Without the trick, there is no fire mastery, no spears, no cave paintings, no civilization. The mind that shaped the world was fed by bones and roots. This is why the trick mattered so deeply. It didn't just help humans survive. Hunger, it gave them time to become something greater, to transform, to imagine, to build. And yet today, we live as though food was always certain. We forget the truth written in blood and hunger, that comfort is temporary, and survival has always belonged to those willing to see opportunity where others see nothing. If you were stripped of your comforts tomorrow, if you stood in the wilderness with nothing, could you do what your ancestors did? Could you turn scraps into survival? For them, the answer determined whether their children lived or died, and because they succeeded, you exist. Lessons from the hunt. Hunting was not just strength, it was strategy. When people imagine the Stone Age, they often see brute force, men charging at mammoths with spears, roaring like wild beasts. But survival was never about raw strength. If it had been, humans would have vanished long ago, outmatched by lions, tigers, and bears that were faster, stronger, deadlier. What gave humans an edge was not muscle, it was strategy. And this is where the forgotten trick wove itself into the hunt. The ability to eat what others couldn't bought humans time. Time meant patience, patience meant planning, and planning changed everything. Unlike predators who burned through energy chasing prey, humans learned to stalk, to observe, to wait. They tracked footprints in mud, broken twigs in the forest, droppings left behind by animals. They noticed details invisible to the impatient. A herd of gazelle might vanish over the horizon, but the hunter with a sharp eye and a belly sustained by marrow or roots could follow for hours, even days. The hunt was never about who was strongest, it was about who could endure long enough to win. Humans became the masters of persistence. They invented what scientists now call persistence hunting, chasing an animal not for minutes, but for miles, until it collapsed from exhaustion. Imagine it, a small group of hunters, steady and relentless, jogging through heat and dust, following an antelope as it sprints, rests, and sprints again. But humans don't stop. Their secret weapon is sweat. While other predators overheat, humans cool themselves and keep moving, hour after hour, step after step, until the animal gives in, not to teeth or claws, but to sheer endurance. This was a revolution. It meant humans could take down prey far larger and stronger than themselves, not because they struck hardest, but because they outlasted. And what fueled this endurance? Not feasts, not banquets, but the hidden scraps, the forgotten trick, the marrow from yesterday's bones, the roots roasted in last night's fire. These quiet calories turned exhaustion into opportunity. Strategy didn't end with persistence. Humans learned cooperation. The lone hunter was vulnerable, but a coordinated group could surround, trap, and corner prey. They developed signals, body language, even early forms of communication. Each role mattered. Some chased, some blocked, some struck. This was more than hunting. This was the seed of society itself, and it was built on the patience hunger had taught them. Because here's the truth, hunger breaks the reckless. The man who runs blindly into a fight with a beast twice, his size doesn't live long enough to teach his children. But the man who studies, who waits, who uses every scrap of energy wisely, that man carries his bloodline forward. Hunting then was never just about killing, it was about thinking. It was about turning weakness into strength, scarcity into advantage. And it was only possible because our ancestors mastered the art of surviving the waiting game. Using the trick to outsmart prey and predators, the wilderness was never a fair battleground. Humans had no claws, no fangs, no natural armor. To face a world of predators, they had only two weapons, their minds and the trick that gave them just enough energy to use it. Think of a wolf pack closing in on a wounded man. Most animals would be finished, but the human mind was different. Sustained by the bitter roots and marrow that kept his tribe alive, the hunter could think clearly under pressure. He could see patterns, he could anticipate movement, he could lay traps. He didn't need to be faster than the wolf, he needed to be smarter. This was the brilliance of the forgotten trick. It didn't just feed the body, it bought clarity for the brain. A starving mind collapses into panic, but a sustained one can scheme. Cavemen used this to turn weakness into cunning. For prey, the trick changed the game entirely. Most predators attacked in bursts of speed, hoping for a quick kill, but humans didn't rely on bursts. They relied on patience. They shadowed herds for days, studying behavior, learning which animals were weak, which paths they used, where they drank water. When the moment came, they set ambushes with sharpened stakes or drove animals into pits they had dug. The kill wasn't about power, it was about foresight. Predators, too, learned to fear humans. At first, humans were scavengers, lurking at the edges of lion kills, waiting until the beasts were done. But over time, they flipped the script. Armed with stone tools and fueled by endurance, they began to drive predators away, stealing not scraps but whole carcasses. Imagine the courage it took. A small band of hunters, armed only with fire and sharpened sticks, roaring at lions until the kings of the savannah backed away. That was not the courage of strength, it was the courage of hunger sharpened into strategy. The trick gave them versatility. When the hunt failed, they didn't die. They turned to bones, roots, insects, and bark. That meant they could try again tomorrow, and the day after. Predators who failed starved. Humans who failed endured. Over time, endurance became dominance. What's easy to forget is that this edge was invisible. It wasn't a weapon you could hold. It wasn't a muscle you could flex. It was hidden knowledge, buried in trial and error, in suffering passed down through generations. The ability to eat what others couldn't gave humans the freedom to plan long-term, to think beyond the moment. And in the wilderness, that was everything. It was this mental edge born from hunger, fueled by scraps that turned the hunted into the hunter, and eventually, the ruler of the food chain. How these lessons still echo in our instincts today, though we live in cities, drive cars, and order food with a swipe of the finger. The echoes of the hunt still live inside us. The survival strategies carved into the minds of cavemen did not vanish. When we invented farming or supermarkets, they became part of our instincts, buried deep in the brain that still whispers, endure, wait, persist. Have you ever wondered why human beings are so drawn to strategy games, puzzles, or competitions of patience? It's because our ancestors survived not by brute force, but by planning, tracking, and outthinking. Every chess match, every long game of poker, every careful strategy in business is a faint reflection of persistence hunting. The thrill of outlasting an opponent doesn't come from modern culture, it comes from millions of years of chasing prey until it collapsed. And then there's our endurance. Humans are still, to this day, capable of running farther than almost any animal on Earth. We may not sprint like cheetahs, but our ability to sweat, to pace ourselves, to keep going mile after mile, hour after hour, comes directly from persistence hunting. Marathon runners, ultra-endurance athletes, even soldiers, marching for days without rest, they all tap into the same survival code that once allowed us to run antelope into exhaustion. Even cravings carry echoes of the old ways. Our obsession with fat, sugar, and salt isn't weakness, it's memory. For our ancestors, those were the rarest, most valuable sources of energy. Marrow, honey, salted meat, those were survival jackpots. Today, surrounded by abundance, those instincts betray us, leading to overeating. But the craving itself is ancient wisdom, reminding us of a time when every calorie meant life. And what about fear? That sudden jolt of adrenaline when you hear a noise in the dark. The hair standing on your neck when you sense danger, those are the shadows of predators our ancestors once faced. Lions in the tall grass, wolves at the edge of the firelight. The feeling that something is watching you when you walk alone at night. ISNT, paranoid's inheritance. But perhaps the deepest echo is patience. Modern life trains us for instant gratification. Food is fast, entertainment is endless, everything is on demand. Yet our most ancient survival lesson was the opposite. Wait, endure, persist. Cavemen who rushed into danger died. Cavemen who planned, who saved, who stretched scraps into meals they lived. That instinct still speaks inside us, if only we're willing to listen. The forgotten trick was never just about food. It was about mindset. It taught our ancestors to see opportunity where others saw nothing, to endure where others gave up, to outlast where others collapsed. And those lessons didn't vanish with time, they live in you, waiting to be awakened. The cost of forgetting how modern life dulls ancient survival instincts. Somewhere along the path of civilization, we traded our survival instincts for comfort. We built walls, then cities, then entire worlds that insulated us from the raw lessons of the hunt. The body that once endured hunger for days now panics if it misses a single meal. The mind that once strategized how to chase prey for hours now grows restless. If the internet takes more than a few seconds to load, the trick that once kept us alive, persistence, patience, endurance, has been dulled by ease. We've forgotten how to suffer well. Cavemen didn't have the choice to quit. If the hunt failed, they starved. If they gave up, their children died. Survival demanded sacrifice, and yet, through that suffering, they found strength. Today, the moment discomfort arrives, we reach for escape. Hunger, we open an app. Boredom, we scroll endlessly. Fear, we drown it in noise and distraction. But what happens when you strip away those conveniences? What happens when the lights go out, when the shelves are empty, when the system fails? Most people would collapse not because they are weak by nature, but because the ancient skills that once kept us alive have been buried under layers of luxury. Consider fasting. For our ancestors, it was not a choice, but a way of life. Days without food trained their bodies to conserve, to adapt, to survive. Today, the idea of skipping breakfast feels like torment. Yet, in forgetting the fast, we forgot resilience. Or look at endurance. A caveman could walk for miles, barefoot, shoulders heavy with meat, while scanning for predators. Today, a short climb of stairs leaves many breathless. The human body hasn't changed much. It is still built for hardship, but the will has softened. Even patience has been eroded. Persistence hunting could take hours, sometimes days. Waiting was survival. But in the modern world, waiting feels unbearable. We refresh pages, we grow angry in traffic. We rage when things don't come instantly. The ability to endure time itself, a skill etched into us by countless hunts, nearly vanished. And here lies the danger. When humanity forgets the struggle, it also forgets the strength. Our ancestors' trick wasn't just physical, it was mental. It taught them to outlast storms, famine, predators, even despair. It gave them an unshakable belief that no matter how long the chase, the reward was coming if only they endured. Strip away technology, remove the comforts, and what remains? Some would starve, not from lack of food, but from lack of will. The forgotten caveman trick, ISNT, just a method of survival at S, the spirit of survival itself. And in forgetting it, we risk forgetting what it means to be truly human. The wisdom inside suffering to the caveman, suffering was not an enemy, it was a teacher. Hunger sharpened his senses. Exhaustion forced him to find deeper reserves of strength. Cold nights carved resilience into his bones. Each moment of struggle was not meaningless pain, but a lesson carved into flesh and memory. Modern life has convinced us that suffering must be eliminated at all costs. Painkillers for headaches, delivery apps for hunger, air conditioning for heat, distractions for boredom. We are told that any form of discomfort is a sign of failure, but the truth is inverted. Discomfort is not failure, it is the forge. It is the fire that shapes character. When the caveman's stomach was empty, his mind became sharper. He could smell prey from farther away, notice movements others missed, feel the urgency of survival in his blood. Hunger was not simply weakness, it was clarity. Today, most people panic at the first growl of an empty stomach. They think it's danger. The caveman knew it was power. When his body screamed with fatigue after hours of running, he learned a deeper truth that the body lies. It says, "You cannot go further," but the spirit answers, "Yes, you can." And so he pushed, and in that pushing, he discovered his real strength. Today, we quit workouts after a few minutes of discomfort. We never reach the place where the lie is exposed, where true power begins. When cold winds cut through his skin, the caveman did not retreat into heated rooms, he adapted. He built fire, crafted fur, hardened his flesh against the elements. Each winter carved wisdom into his tribe, how to survive, how to endure, how to rise above nature's test. Today, at the first sign of inconvenience, we retreat instead of adapt. We flee instead of build. Suffering was not just endured, it was honored, because every hardship was proof of life. Every hunger meant there was something worth chasing. Every storm survived meant there was something worth protecting. Here lies the forgotten wisdom. Suffering does not kill you. Comfort does. Comfort lulls you to sleep. It dulls your instincts, softens your will. It raises the hunger that drives evolution forward. The caveman knew that comfort was temporary, but struggle was eternal. And that eternal struggle was what made him powerful. We mistake luxury for progress, but the ancestors would laugh at such a thought. Progress, to them, was not measured in ease, it was measured in endurance. The tribe that endured the longest survived. The man who could carry the heaviest burden protected his family. The child who learned to suffer early became the leader tomorrow. And so, the wisdom inside suffering is simple. It awakens you. It strips away illusion. It reveals the raw truth of existence, that life has always been a battle, and only those willing to suffer through it will taste the victory at the end. Reclaiming the forgotten trick, the caveman did not survive because of luck. He survived because he had a system, a rhythm that modern humans have completely abandoned. That rhythm was built on cycles of hunger and fulfillment, of hardship and relief. He did not eat 3 balanced meals a day delivered by convenience. He fasted without calling it fasting. He struggled without complaining. He trained his body by living, not by scheduling workouts. The forgotten trick is simple. Embrace controlled struggle. The ancestors didn't choose their pain, but they accepted it and used it as fuel. Today, we can no longer depend on nature to test us. We must choose our own trials, or we will rot in ease. The first step to reclaiming this ancient wisdom is to reintroduce hunger, not starvation, but the discipline of waiting. Skip the meal, feel the growl, and instead of panicking, listen to it. Notice how alert you become. Notice how alert you feel. That was the caveman's constant state. Hunger was not his enemy, it was his ally. The second step is to face discomfort on purpose. Walk in the cold without rushing to shelter. Sweat in the heat instead of hiding in air conditioning. Push your body in training not until it feels uncomfortable, but until it begs you to quit, and then keep going. That's where the ancestors lived, beyond the point of I can't. The third step is to strip away unnecessary crutches. The caveman did not have screens to numb his boredom, sugar to numb his emotions, or pills to silence every ache. He faced reality as it was, raw, harsh, unfiltered. You do not need to abandon the modern world to reclaim his strength. You only need to stop numbing every signal your body gives. Pain is not the enemy, is information. This is the essence of the forgotten trick. To rewire your relationship with struggle, most people today run from it. The caveman leaned into it. That is why his spirit was unbreakable, while modern spirits crack under the weight of the smallest stress. Ask yourself this: if the world collapsed tomorrow, if food stopped arriving at stores, if fire was no longer guaranteed, who would survive? The man who has lived only in ease, or the one who has trained his mind and body to embrace discomfort as fuel? The answer is clear. Without this forgotten trick, you would starve not just for food, but for strength, for meaning, for life itself. With it, you are unstoppable. With it, you carry the flame of the ancestors forward, unbroken, untamed, and alive. So remember this: comfort is not your friend. Struggle is not your enemy. Hunger is not weakness, it is power. And when you reclaim that truth, you reclaim the same spirit that once carried humanity out of the caves and into the future. The eternal echo from caveman to conqueror. The fire that burned in the caves did not die when stone walls rose into cities. It carried forward, silently shaping every great figure who ever walked this earth. The forgotten trick, the embrace of hunger, struggle, and discomfort became the foundation of empires, the fuel of warriors, the secret of visionaries. Alexander the Great did not conquer half the world because he was born into luxury. He inherited wealth, yes, but it was not silk sheets that made him unstoppably. It was discipline, forged through relentless training, sleepless marches, and enduring hunger on campaigns where food ran out but ambition never did. Julius Caesar was not made in the Senate. He was made on the battlefield, when his men starved and froze, when he himself went without comfort so his soldiers would endure. The empire he built was not carved by words alone, but by his ability to embrace struggle that others fled from. Genghis Khan began not as a ruler, but as an outcast boy, abandoned with his family to starve on the harsh Mongolian steppes. Hunger carved itself into his bones. Struggle molded him into iron. The forgotten trick was not philosophy, to him it was survival. That survival became conquest, and that conquest reshaped the entire world. Even in the spiritual realm, the pattern holds. Buddha starved himself in search of truth before realizing balance. Jesus fasted for 40 days in the desert before beginning his mission. Prophets, warriors, kings all carried the same echo of the caveman's rhythm: struggle before power, hunger before vision, pain before purpose. This is no coincidence, it is law. Those who embrace the forgotten trick ascend. Those who flee it remain ordinary. Now think of the modern man, fed at every turn, comfortable at every moment, distracted at every second. Compare him to the conquerors of the past. The gap is not intelligence. It is not talent. It is the willingness to endure discomfort. The forgotten trick has been lost in the haze of abundance, and with it, the greatness that once defined humanity. But the truth is this: the echo is still inside you. The blood of survivors runs through your veins. Your ancestors starved, fought, bled, and endured so you could exist. The question is whether you will honor their gift or waste it in softness. The caveman's trick became the conqueror's weapon, and it can become yours if you choose to listen. The death of struggle in the modern world? Look around you. Look at the cities glowing at night, the aisles of supermarkets overflowing with food, the constant hum of machines doing the labor your ancestors once bled for. On the surface, it looks like victory. Humanity has won the war against hunger, against struggle, against the wild chaos of nature. But in truth, we are losing something far more important. The forgotten trick is vanishing. Where our ancestors sharpened spears, we sharpen screens. Where they walked miles to hunt, we tap buttons to order food. Where they endured hunger as a teacher, we avoid it at all costs. Stuffing ourselves at the first pang of discomfort, numbing the body with sugar, numbing the mind with endless entertainment. The cost? A generation weaker than ever before. Think about it. Obesity has become more common than hunger. Anxiety thrives in a world where no predator hunts us. Depression suffocates, lives surrounded by comfort. How can it be that in the safest, richest era in history, more people feel lost, broken, and powerless? Because comfort has become the new cage. The caveman's struggle was brutal, yes, but it gave meaning. Every meal was earned. Every fire was a triumph. Every survival was a victory that filled the soul. Today, the victories are artificial, packaged in likes, notifications, and instant pleasures. The soul knows the difference. It craves the real thing. We were not built for ease, we were built for war, for challenge, for the eternal dance with survival. And when that struggle disappears, so does our strength. Muscles atrophy, minds weaken, spirit dissolves. Modern society, in trying to eliminate pain, has accidentally eliminated purpose. You see it in the office worker who feels empty despite the paycheck, in the teenager addicted to dopamine hits on a glowing screen, in the endless cycle of comfort buying, comfort eating, comfort scrolling, all distractions from the gnawing truth. The forgotten trick has been abandoned, and with it, the essence of being fully alive. The irony is that the survival skills our ancestors mastered are not obsolete. They are hidden treasures, waiting to be rediscovered. When a modern man fasts, he awakens the same fire his ancestors felt when they hunted. When a modern woman pushes her body to its limits, she channels the same resilience that once carried tribes through winters. When we embrace struggle by choice, we resurrect the echo of the caveman inside us. The world thinks struggle is death. The truth, struggle is life. Without it, you may survive physically, but spiritually, you starve. The death of struggle is the death of greatness, but it is not irreversible. The fire still waits to be rekindled, awakening the forgotten trick. So here we are, at the edge of two worlds. One of glowing screens, climate control, and comfort, and one of fire, hunger, and survival. The question is not which world you were born into, the question is, which world will you choose to awaken within yourself? The caveman's trick was never just about food, never just about fire, never just about weapons. It was about transformation. It was about taking weakness and reshaping it into strength, taking hunger and turning it into focus, taking fear and forging it into courage. That is the forgotten trick, and it is still yours, if you dare to reclaim it. How? By choosing to step willingly into struggle, by rejecting the soft path, by denying yourself the easy option when the hard one is available. When your body tells you to stop, keep moving. When your stomach growls, let it sharpen your mind instead of silencing it with sugar. When fear whispers, answer with action. Each time you do, you awaken the ancient fire. Each time you choose discomfort, you become a little less of this fragile modern shell, and a little more of the unbreakable human your ancestors intended you to be. Because here's the truth. Comfort will not save you. In the face of life's storms, only strength will, and strength cannot be bought, it must be forged. The forgotten trick is not dead. It is in the blood that pumps through your veins. It is in the hunger that gnaws at you when you dare to delay gratification. It is in the resistance you feel when you push beyond your limits. It is in the silence you find when you step away from the noise and remember what it means to fight for something real. You may never stalk prey across an endless plain, spear in hand. You may never huddle in a cave while a storm rages outside, but you can fight your own hunt. You can conquer your own hunger. You can find your own fire, and if you do, you will not just survive, you will live. The caveman lives on inside you, waiting for you to answer, waiting for you to remember the forgotten trick, the law of struggle, the power of hunger, the glory of fire, the truth that nothing worth keeping comes without pain. So the choice is yours. Stay soft and starve in spirit, or embrace the struggle and awaken the unbreakable. Because the forgotten trick is not a story of the past. It is a weapon for the future, and those who dare to wield it will not just echo their ancestors. They will become legends. If this story stirred something inside you, it's because the ancient fire has not gone out. It still burns, waiting for you to feed it. Do not let comfort steal the greatness that your ancestors paid for in blood, hunger, and fire. Remember the forgotten trick, live it, carry it forward. And if you want more echoes of the hunt, more truths carved in stone and written in fire, then stay with us. Subscribe, join the tribe, and let us journey deeper into the world where survival was the only law, and strength was the only currency. Because this is not just history. This is who we are, this is who you are. And together we will awaken it again.